Carol was just 15 when she met 29-year-old bus driver Harry Jarvis in 1977. Carol's family had issues with their relationship from the start, not just for the age difference, but also for the alcohol problems Jarvis had, as at the time he was drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. Despite these issues, Carol and Jarvis married and had 4 children, 3 of them being 1 year apart from one another. Before their youngest son had left primary school, the family made the decision to move from London up to Scotland. Carol had always enjoyed spending time up there on family holidays, so it felt like the right place for her, and Jarvis had fallen out with his close family at this point, making it easy for him to move. Carol, Jarvis and the children moved to Balbardy Crescent in Bathgate, a small town 22 miles west of Edinburgh, where Carol established herself as a well-loved member of the community. She became a brownie leader and was always the first port of call for the girls when they had a problem. She was a perfect mother and loved bringing up her children, and she bloomed into the maternal role. Her son Graham describes her as one of a kind, always having their backs and supporting her children whenever they needed her. On the outside, everything looked perfect. Carol was a devoted wife who fully trusted her husband, despite the signs there was something secretive about Jarvis's life. He would disappear for days at a time and was getting into trouble for embezzlement and fraud. But Carol would ignore these issues and stand by her husband. These weren't the only vices that Jarvis had that was impacting the family. He was still drinking, and the children recognised when it was best to stay clear of him due to his unpredictable behaviour. In the year 2000, at age 38, Carol was diagnosed with a degenerative muscle condition that left her in a wheelchair. When Jarvis would disappear, the children would step in to take care of Carol and keep the house in order. Jarvis eventually gives up his job and becomes Carol's full-time carer, and the family relied on benefits to keep them afloat. In between looking after Carol and while she was bedbound, Jarvis prowled internet dating sites to meet women. He would have multiple affairs, and in May 2008, Jarvis met 56-year-old Rita Hayster, a woman with a millionaire inheritance left to her by her father. However, Rita had been frivolous with her fortune and was temporarily in need of a home. Things escalated quickly between the pair, and against the advice of her friends, Rita made the decision to move 50 miles from her home near the English-Scottish border up to Bathgate. Initially staying in bed and breakfast, this became too expensive, so in order to be together, Jarvis moves her into the garden shed, just feet away from the main house. There were electricity cables, a mattress and towels, and due to this bizarre setup, even the neighbours were aware that Rita was staying in the shed. And at this point, Jarvis and Rita didn't care who saw them and would walk around the neighbourhood holding hands. At this time, only the couple's 18-year-old daughter lived in the house, which left Jarvis open access to the medication cupboard and gave him an opportunity to keep Carol under his control. He would over-medicate Carol with sleeping pills to keep her sedated, and their children started to notice their mother's health deteriorating. But when Jarvis would leave, Carol's condition would improve, to the point where Carol was conscious and asking her children where their father was. As soon as Jarvis returned, her condition would worsen. The children were suspicious, but struggled to question the actions of their father. Jarvis wanted out of his marriage to Carol, and makes it clear in the odd love letters he was sending to the shed. They discussed getting rid of Carol so that they could be together, and it was obvious from these letters that Jarvis was actively poisoning Carol, suggesting that it was almost over and it won't be long now. On Friday the 11th of September 2009, the couple's daughter leaves the family home to go to university. That same day, their son Graham sees Jarvis in Bathgate town centre and was troubled by how his father was acting. He appeared to be dazed and confused, but still managed to ask his son for some money. When Graham asked where his mother was, Jarvis told him she was sleeping in the house, which Graham thought nothing more of. The following Monday, Graham's brother calls to see if Graham is visiting their mother that day, as he noticed his father was acting strangely, and due to not having his keys, he couldn't get into the house. When Graham visited on that Monday evening and questioned Jarvis where his mother was, he said she was out for a walk, and then changed his story to say she was house hunting in Dundee, as they were looking to move up there. This was when alarm bells started ringing for Carol's children. Graham calls his siblings to meet at the house and get answers from their father about their mother's whereabouts. There was a hostile atmosphere, and Jarvis was constantly defending himself when they would ask about her, pleading with them that she was still in Dundee. Graham eventually managed to get into the house and couldn't find any signs of Carol, so returns to the garden and makes the decision to call the police. The police make a strange discovery when they enter the house. They find a woman hiding under the bed, and when she came out from underneath, instead of admitting that she was his lover, he tried to convince police that she was in fact his wife Carol. Rita even went along with the story, but unfortunately for them, the female police officer in attendance had previously met Carol, so she knew Rita wasn't her. Jarvis told the same story to police, that Carol was in Dundee looking at a house, and that he was going to pick her up the next day. It was an agonising wait for Carol's children, as they were unable to report her missing until the full 24 hours was up, and Jarvis had agreed to take Carol to the police station after bringing her home the next day. Jarvis was still unable to convince his children that Carol was alive, and their wait ended with the police searching the house, finding a woman's body underneath the floorboards. The body was wrapped in a duvet and bound with parcel tape. It was discarded in a 3-foot-high void under the floor and covered in unwanted household belongings and debris. The police launched a murder inquiry to determine if the body was Carol's. A forensics team was contacted to remove the body and collect any evidence in the small space where it was found. It was Carol's body, but the level of decomposition prevented pathologists from determining a cause of death. Attention turns to Jarvis and Rita, but they are nowhere to be seen. Jarvis had been caught off guard by his children, and had he been given the time, he would have moved Carol's body elsewhere, as there was evidence in the house to suggest that this was his plan. The police start a manhunt for the pair and set up surveillance to track their movements. They're first discovered at a bed and breakfast in Perth, and after leaving without paying, make their way to Edinburgh, where police were waiting for them at a bus station. They were taken to the local police HQ, where they were searched, processed and interviewed. Unbelievably, Jarvis told police that Carol had particular sexual likes and dislikes, including being choked, and died because she had had a fit. He placed her under the floorboards as he couldn't bear to live without her, and told police that he would regularly lay with her body under the floorboards and talk to her. Separated from Jarvis at interview, Rita on the other hand was telling a different story. She was convinced that her and Jarvis were a couple, that he was leaving his wife, and they went away to start a new life together. She was completely unaware that Carol was dead, and they were leaving Bathgate to set up a new home elsewhere. There were major concerns as to whether this case would get to court, as there was no direct evidence of a criminal act, no cause of death, and forensic evidence was difficult to obtain as Carol and Jarvis lived together. Was this a case of a husband killing his wife in order for him and his lover to finally be together? In September 2009, Jarvis and Rita were arrested for the murder of 47-year-old Carol Jarvis, which they both denied. The police built a strong circumstantial case against the pair, and they were due to be on trial together at Edinburgh Crown Court. But Rita's defence team appealed for a separate trial, as there was insufficient evidence linking her to Carol's death. The judge acquitted her of murder, and she was charged with attempting to defeat the ends of justice. Her defence team were convinced that she would be found guilty of murder by association with Jarvis, rather than the evidence presented. Jarvis went on trial for the murder of Carol alone, and being put under pressure would again constantly change his story. The prosecution presented to the jury the knowledge that Carol was dead, under the floorboards, wrapped in a duvet, and that Jarvis had told lies to his children about the whereabouts of their mother. However, the case was supported by the love letters Jarvis had written to Rita while she was living in the shed, indicating that he was planning on killing Carol. The letters describe how Carol was dying as I write, and drugs are doing job, just took longer than I thought, and that him and Rita would be in paradise soon. It was presented that this was not an unfortunate death that led to panicked decisions being made by Carol's family or friends, but a calculated mission to get out of the marriage and start a new life with a millionaire mistress. In 2011, after a lengthy trial, Jarvis was sentenced to life and was ordered to serve a minimum of 15 years before parole. Rita's trial followed, and she didn't say anything regarding to the trial or give any evidence, and by proxy denied having any involvement in the murder. There was evidence to suggest that Rita had been in contact with Carol's body, as police found forensic evidence on the parcel tape that had been used to wrap her in the duvet. The trial took 4 weeks, with Rita being found guilty and sentenced to 4 years and 6 months for attempting to defeat the ends of justice by helping Jarvis to cover the murder. The judge told Rita that her conduct had a practical and pernicious result in that the delay in discovering the body of Carol Jarvis caused deterioration in the condition of the body. Jarvis appeared to have no remorse for killing his wife, a woman that was fully devoted to him and always defending his behaviour throughout their entire marriage. Although there was no cause of death, no eyewitnesses, or substantial forensic evidence, the love letters between Jarvis and Rita proved that they would do whatever it takes to be together. Jarvis, fueled by the potential of living off Rita's non-existent fortune, believing she still had money, murdered Carol in order to get out of his marriage. On the 20th of April 2017, Jarvis died in prison from a heart attack after serving 6 of his 15-year sentence. 4 children have been left behind from Carol and Jarvis's marriage. None of his children had contacted him since the trial, and even suggest feeling sorry for Rita. Due to the person their father was, it could have been any woman, but she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. After more than a decade, it still plays on their children's minds, but they remember their mother through photographs, songs, and the stories they tell their own children about the woman and mother Carol Jarvis was. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more interesting case files, and let me know in the comments if there's any cases you would like to see on the channel. Thanks for watching and stay safe.